So Vlad, as mentioned before, he's 21 years old. He crushed his first year. He made over $100,000. Now that I've known him for about 8 months since we've been in the coaching program together, just really, I love his energy. I know he's going out there putting in the work. When I went to Vegas for the mastermind the first time, like he picked me up and he's on the phone negotiating a deal. And he has this maturity to him that not a lot of 21-year-olds have. So I really respect that about him. And he's just a go-getter. He's not making excuses, and he's making it happen. So I want you guys to hear his story, how he's scaling up his business in his second year, and just to get to know him. He's in the Vegas market, and that's one of the most competitive markets in the whole country. And he's still making it happen. And I think he has something to share that you guys will find really valuable. So let's bring Vlad in.
I played football for a really long time. I played, pretty high level high school football. Then I played at UNLV over here at the college here in Vegas. And at one point I just didn't love that anymore and was looking for some different stuff. So I was kind of bouncing around different things. As us entrepreneurs, we're always trying to find, something that fits, but we just don't like the status quo, of doing the regular stuff. So I got into a couple different things. I did, tried like a sales job, like an insurance sales job. Was trying to be a personal financial advisor for a little bit. So I was just bouncing around doing a bunch of different things. Accidentally joined like a multi-level marketing, a little pyramid scheme. Had no idea what I was doing. And then they're like, you have to recruit people. I was like, never mind, I'm out. Didn't even know that that's what this was. And then one day I was listening to Real Estate Disruptors, Steve Trank's podcast, and I heard Ryan Pineda on there. He was talking about how he's flipping houses in Vegas. And I was like, if it's flipping houses, that sounds cool. And he was like, I flip 100 homes a year. And so I went right to Google and I was like, how much do you make on a house flip? And it was like 20 to 40,000, depending on the market. And I was like, so this guy's a multi-millionaire, essentially. I was like, I need to get in with this guy. So long story short, I ended up kind of reaching out to him and I was like, hey, in his DMs, how can I work with you? I'll work for free. And he kind of blew me off. He was like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's expected if you just reach out to somebody and you don't really give any value there, there's no point in them really talking to you. So he was just like, hey, come to my meetup, but, can't really do too much. Not really hiring right now. It's like, okay, that's cool. So sure enough, I went to a meetup and I was like, hey, I want to flip. And a few of the guys there, they're like, hey, we're all flippers. Why don't you try wholesaling? And so I was like, what's wholesaling? And I kind of looked into it, studied it for about a month. And I was like, okay, seems easy enough. Let's go generate some leads. And then that's kind of how I've kind of stumbled into real estate and just built momentum ever since.
Awesome. What I like about the story, though, Rod, I want to highlight you guys, is you see how even though he's young, he was trying different things. I can relate to that because I've worked in property management. I've been an agent. I've worked as a lender. I've worked as an Airbnb super host. I mean, all these variety of things. And when you have a variety of things, you see what works, and you get to get this experience. And even if you don't make a bunch of money, you kind of like figuring out what doesn't work. And I love how that you just kept on pivoting, and then you finally found something, and then you found a mentor. You reached out to him, and he blew you off, but you didn't even give up. You kept on going with it and saying, hey, you know what? I'll find a way. And that, you guys, is grit. That's persistence. That's perseverance. You can't train that. That's something that you need to have in entrepreneurship, in real estate investing, because you're going to get rejected a lot. People are going to tell you no. People are going to tell you that you can't do it. So credit to you, Vlad, for continuing forward, and then also trying different things and saying, hey, this didn't work. Let me try something else. Because people will try a couple things, they give up, and they just go get a regular job. It's like, you got to try different things, man. So great.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Vlad, I think a big thing I kind of took from it was just that you said you kind of studied for 1 month and then you dove in. That's just like incredible. What were some of the things you studied? Like, were you studying YouTubes? Were you reading a book? Like, what were you kind of getting into that gave you that momentum to just take some action after 1 month?
Yeah. So, I mean, once I heard it at the meetup, I kind of was asking everybody. I was like, so you're telling me I could go lock up a deal and then you'll buy it from me and I'll make some money on it? And they're like, yes. And I was like, okay. That makes sense. Like, Okay, fine. So then I was, I was studying on YouTube, watching YouTubes, looking it up on Google, and I was like, well, this seems pretty, pretty basic. Like it's simple enough, but I was like, there's got to be like a catch to it. So I mean, I'm not gonna know what the catch is till I try it. So I ended up just going out and trying to find leads, and essentially found out, kind of learned as I went. I didn't even I think the biggest part of kind of my success starting out was not knowing everything, but knowing just enough to get me kind of going to the point that where I found a roadblock, I would go back and find the answer at that point.
Yeah, I want to, guys. I don't want to skip over this. This is really, really important. Which is, he didn't use any excuses. He took action. I really feel like sometimes the reason there's the term analysis paralysis is because we end up getting too much information. I think that's one of the challenges nowadays, because I know when I started in 2017, I had took enough action, but also learned enough, and I didn't get overwhelmed too much. It was like kind of like a mix of both. Now there's so much information out there, it's easy to just get overwhelmed and then not do anything. So it's like almost like the ignorance is bliss, right? Where you don't even know that you're not supposed to be successful in a certain field or a certain strategy or anything like that. You just know you have to take a certain amount of action to potentially be successful, and you're just doing that. So, and if you just do that, you'll get some results, and then you'll figure it out from there. But if you don't take those actions, you're never going to get to that point where you're going to be able to ask questions. And I find also it enables you to network better when you're taking action, because then you could earn the right to ask questions like, hey, I did this, this worked, this didn't work. And so can you help me with this? Because I've already taken action, and I'm happy to reward people with my time that are taking action, because I know that they need the help, compared to someone just like, oh, I've been thinking about this, I've been thinking about that, I've been researching this. And not that I don't want to help those people, but it's like, you haven't even taken any real action to like be able to know what the results are going to be for you to go ahead and pivot and then make adjustments like VLAD has been doing. So love it. Love it.
VLAD, I think one thing that really hit home to me right there that you said is you learned as you went. You didn't need to know the entire game, but you said, I knew just as much as I needed to go and get started. And then I learned as I went. What were some of the first things that you think you kind of went into battle with? Like if you had to break it down, obviously you meet a couple of guys, you went in knowing like, hey, if I bring a deal, all I have to do is bring a deal and somebody will buy it. So, what was that first strategy for you? Like, how am I going to get that deal?
Yeah. So I started looking into it. Like what are the marketing, like different ways people market? How do you find these sellers? And I started looking at, there's a ton of real estate, like coaches out there, like Clever Investor, Cody, and who else, like Brendan Daniels and stuff like that. So all they talk about is just going out, finding motivated sellers. They're out there. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go and find motivated sellers. So my first kind of step was finding those motivated sellers. And then, what I didn't know at the time was, how to get properties under contract, how the escrow works, I knew the numbers kind of, but at the end of the day, it was like more just me taking action and marketing and going out and kind of getting out of my own head. And then at that point, once I ran into roadblocks, I was like, well, I got a property, but I have no idea how to get this under contract. Well, I might as well, reach out to somebody that knows how to do it and bring them on, and maybe they could teach me now, and I'll bring them value. They bring me value as well.
Yeah, and you're going to hit roadblocks along the way. Like it's not like you're just going to, have a seamless transition, but knowing that you have those people in your corner, that are able to kind of help you out with that, I think that's awesome. Really, when you kind of look at it, taking action, I think is the biggest thing that I kind of took from what you mentioned.
Yeah. And then also with the Ryan Pineda thing, whenever you said you'll work for free to do the mentorship, and then, like Will said, again, missing 100% of the shots that you don't take, putting yourself out there and trying. And then that's sometimes, personally, I got the, mentorship and being able to work for and with Alex. It's one of the best things that's ever happened, and being involved in this, it's amazing.
And a lot of people don't want to humble themselves and go down to that level and say, hey, I'll work for free. I want to learn. I want to dive in. I want to get my hands dirty. Again, especially somebody at your age, a 21-year-old, You think a lot of times younger people, they just, want to jump maybe from job to job, quick transitions, but you're sitting here, you're almost the exact opposite. You're saying, hey man, I want to take some time. I want to work for free. I want to learn the craft. And again, a lot of respect to you for that, man.
Yeah, for sure. And even that wasn't enough. It just didn't align with his vision at the time of what he needed with his company. So he essentially told me that, hey, I don't really need that right now. Like, sorry. And I could have been like, oh, this guy sucks. I really hate him. And why would he deny my free work? But at that point, I was just like, all right, well, I'll pivot now. Now I do want to go out and make money. Maybe I'll try it myself and see how it goes. So. Roadblock, just go around it.
What were some of the things that as a 21-year-old you didn't have that you might have thought that you needed to have, jumping into real estate? You always hear you need money, you need this, you need that. Like, what were some of those hurdles that you were able to get by?
I think you hit it on the nail. I mean, money is a huge, starting out, it can be very intimidating, thinking like, hey, I am really broke. Because at the time when I started, I had like $350 or $450, one of those. But at the time, it seemed like an okay amount of money. I mean, I was starting out, I was like, whatever, I have some money saved off my paycheck, but in the grand scheme of real estate, that's, next to nothing. But the great thing is you don't need money. All you need is, some hustle and some drive and some perseverance. And I think you can find ways to get around the money part, the experience part, and just, still be able to find deals.
How do you compete in LA, Alex and Vlad? How do you compete in Vegas in these really competitive markets as a newbie, as a small fish on the block? Like, how are you guys able to compete with these bigger kind of companies?
Yeah, so like Alex mentioned, I'm in Vegas, so I'm in arguably one of the most competitive markets in the country. With a lot of different markets, you have kind of a major metro, and then you have the outside, kind of those cities, and you could sometimes get away with that. Not really here in Vegas. Here in Vegas, it's Henderson, Las Vegas, and North Las Vegas. They're all jumbled together. It's basically one metropolitan. Outside, there's nothing really. So you have a ton of different investors competing for the Las Vegas Valley. So, with that being said, how do you compete with kind of the big fish on the block? The big fish on the block, they have something that you don't, which is a lot of money. They spend a ton of money marketing, which is, thousands and thousands of dollars a month. Some of them are spending, tens of thousands of dollars. And you don't have that, but you don't need to have that. As a small single person, you also have something that they don't have, which is, kind of that time and the personal touch. They're kind of throwing money out there and they're getting all the low hanging fruit. But as, a small investor, you're not going to, there's strength in numbers of marketing. When you're marketing, you're going to pick up the easy deals, the people that just really need to sell. You're going to get that slam dunk deal. And it's like, all of a sudden, perfect. But you have to market for deals like that. If you want to just start off and get your first deal, you have to get those tougher deals that might be a little bit tougher to kind of get. You have to follow up more. You might have to call the seller 7 to 8 to 9 times for them to be like, man, you're persistent. Like, none of these other big guys, we buy houses guys, none of them are calling me that one time. They call me once or twice. Oh, not interested, throw me off the list because they have, they're picking up deals elsewhere. But for me, that's how I started. So, that's how you compete. You are more persistent and a lot more personable, and you'll pick up those deals that the big guys just won't.
Dude, I love that. I love that so much because you're kind of what makes you a little bit different, right? Like, say, I can be more persistent. I could follow up more. I could be more personable. The other guy's just trying to hit a quota. You're really trying to find out what's going on and why they're in foreclosure. I mean, they're going to sense that energy from you, and it's going to help you get the deal, because a lot of times it's not about the price. I wanted to echo about what you were saying because, also being in LA, a lot of people hit me up about that. And, hey, how are you doing deals in LA? So I wanted to kind of go back a little bit real quick. Number one, when I first worked for the initial investor I was working for as an inside sales agent, I remember his buying criteria is like he had to make at least $100,000 profit or he didn't want to touch the deal. And so before I even knew what I was kind of doing all the way, we were kind of throwing away opportunities for maybe wholesaling or for maybe doing a fix and flip deal that was going to make only 40, 50 grand, but he just didn't want to tie up his capital. So what might not be a deal for him was definitely a deal for somebody else. And somebody was going to do that deal, right? So that's the first thing I want to say, is that every single investor, as similar as they may be, have different buying criteria and different bandwidth based on how many projects and capital they have access to. And so if you're already in your head thinking you can't do deals in a competitive market, you're already losing the game before you even play. So there's that one. And then when I went to go work for the second investor, their buying criteria was different, but they didn't really want to market. They just wanted to buy off MLS, and they just wanted to buy off a trustee sale. And so what ended up happening is that I started doing marketing on my own with my own money that I saved through working with them, because they didn't want to do it. And I saw the opportunity, because every time they did a little bit of marketing, I got good leads and I converted. So in my head, I'm like, hey, I know I can convert. I know that if I do marketing, I'm probably gonna get some good leads direct to seller. And I don't have to settle for these average deals on MLS. They have their place, but I don't have to be limited only buying that way. So I started marketing on my own. And sure enough, I had a couple deals I got under contract. I did joint venture with, and I had a month I made over $100,000, and that was a breakout month for me, because I took that additional risk, because I didn't believe that, hey, I can't compete in a difficult market. And I was working for a company that was buying 150 houses a year, and they still couldn't buy everything. And I still ended up buying different deals that they didn't want to buy, because one of those deals that I bought, you guys, was a property that I bought subject to, which is, buying it with taking over the mortgage and not having to get a hard money loan. And I did it creatively, and they would never do that. So I wasn't competing directly with even my own employer. I was, like really just creating my own deal. So you have to understand that these deals are created. These deals are not just simply found. And if you compete and you go out there, you can differentiate yourself from the competition, as long as you understand what your competitive advantage is. I know my competitive advantage is I work hard. I know what I want. I know real estate values. I'm great at sales. I'm great at negotiating. So I'm going to use all those strengths that I have. Now, am I the best numbers person? No. Am I, the most disciplined person in the world? No. But at least I know myself enough to what my strengths are. And then I try to double down on my strengths, compared to just being like, oh, you know what? Let me go somewhere else to a different market. Let me do something else because I just given up before I even tried. So there's no one investor, you guys. I say this all the time, and I believe it with deep in my soul, because I've seen it. No one investor can buy every single investment opportunity. It's just impossible. There's too many moving parts. So if that's the case, and that's a fact, then you're just one deal away, you're one offer away, you're one action step away from going out there and getting your first deal or your next deal. I truly believe that, or else we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Bottom line, it's really basics, you guys. Put yourself out there, network. So for people that are looking to get started as a wholesaler, Vlad, where should I start?
First of all, educate yourself. I mean, if you're already in here, you probably already know. So that's probably all the education you need, honestly. If you already know the basics of real estate, you lock up a good deal under contract, and at that point, you can wholesale it. You don't really need too much, but if you have absolutely no knowledge of real estate, then, obviously first educate yourself, but not too much that you have analysis paralysis. And then from that point, know the basics, know the market that you want to invest in. Is going to be virtually? I don't do virtual, so I probably am not a great resource for that. I like my own backyard. I love Las Vegas. I'm, not born and raised here, but I've lived here since I was about 2.5 years old. So I know all the pockets. I know exactly where the hood starts and where the hood ends. I know where the nice area of town is that's kind of slept on. I love Vegas. It's very competitive, but I like doing deals here, because when somebody tells me an address and part of town, I know exactly, like, hey, these are the kind of numbers where we'd probably have to be at based on square footage. I'll go comp it, but that's what I know. So personally, if you like the area you live and you're knowledgeable into good real estate market, I would start in your backyard, kind of know what deals are selling for, what investors are buying deals for, which is the most important. What are the cash sales in the area? Because retail sales are one thing, but flippers buying deals, that's a whole different thing. So you have to realize, what is a flipper going to buy a deal for versus what is it going to sell on the market? And so, if you see flippers are buying for $100,000 and then they're flipping it for, 150,000 or whatever, then you know that you need to start locking deals up at 90 to 85,000 if you want to make 15 to 10 to 15,000 as your assignment fee. So kind of knowing your market, that's number two. And number three is marketing, because if you don't market, you're not going to get deals. So marketing is super, super important. Personally, like I said, you don't need a lot of money to start. My marketing starting out was door knocking, and I can guarantee you that zero of the big guys that we're competing with that we talked about in the beginning go out door knocking these pre-foreclosures and tax delinquents. They'll send a mail, but they're not about to go and door knock them and try to, talk to them in person. So that was my marketing to begin with, and that cost me $0, maybe some gas. But usually the way I would do it is I would have to go somewhere anyway, so I might as well stop on the way. So even zero for gas, you would say. But now, I'm obviously marketing a lot more, a few thousand a month. So you can definitely scale up, but starting out, you don't need to, spend a ton of money.
Now, Vlad, when getting ready to purchase a property, we know that some problems may come up, whether on the condition of the property itself or in the purchase process. And some people might be more tolerant to these problems, or others might be less tolerant. But personally, what are your deal breakers when you're looking to for a property to wholesale?
I said no deal breakers for me. Anything that's a deal, I'll work with it. That's the beauty about wholesaling. So, as a flipper, you have your certain buying criteria of things that, you buy, but sometimes something runs across that just doesn't work. It's a 1930s built home that has 3 units and an attached apartment unit. Like, let's say you personally don't do this, and you do some flips. That's why I think everybody can be a wholesaler, even if you're not a full-time wholesaler, because now this property came across, you could say, hey, I'm not going to, lock it up. Or you could say, hey, that's a good deal, just not for me, but I'll lock it up and I'll sell it to an investor here in town. Somebody else will pay me for it, and I'll make an assignment fee, bring some extra cash flow into the company. So 100% no deal breakers. I'll look at anything if it's a deal. And, if now that I'm trying to flip more, if it's something I don't want to flip, then I'll wholesale it, or, figure out a way to, get rid of it.
So, Alex, I mean, that's pretty similar on our business. Wouldn't you agree? If you kind of think about it, like, we kind of market to our own niche of properties that we're looking for. And if it doesn't really fit our scope, that's where you would maybe call one of your partners or somebody in your network and say, hey, does this deal fit your parameters? And do you want to take it down?
Yeah, absolutely. We recently, remember that property in Pacoima, it just had too many moving parts. There was issues with the tenants, and we didn't want to deal with like buying it occupied with uncooperative tenants. I mean, not that we haven't done that before, but
this one had a little bit of drug use in it, and so there was some extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, and it was off of a main street, and it was like a small lot, but it had the pool, but it was a small lot. It just had too much going on. I didn't really want to take on that risk. So then, Moises, he had a client that wanted to buy it. We didn't make much, $5,000, but hey, $5,000 that I have, I'd rather have that 5,000 than not. And so, our business model is to buy entry level to mid-level properties to flip that are cosmetic rehab. Sometimes we'll go heavy rehab if it's a deeper discount, but that's our business model. And so if it doesn't fit that box, then we'll look to wholesale or help list the property. So, these are just different tools in your investor's tool belt. So you need to get good at one strategy. Like Vlad is, really good at wholesaling now in a competitive market. So he's in the driver's seat of where deals are, he's originating the deals, and now he's transitioning to also doing fix and flip deals and joint venture deals, right? And so he's continuing to add to his investor's toolbox. If you guys recall, I just mentioned that deal that was one of my best deals ever, and I bought it subject to. If I didn't have that tool in my tool belt, I would have passed on that deal. But instead, it turned out to be one of my best deals ever because I was continually learning new strategies. Even though I had already had some success, I was making some money, I knew how to flip property, I was always looking to learn more. And I didn't learn that from my other mentors. I learned that by listening to Bigger Pockets, by talking to other investors, by all this other, learning. So, it's just a matter of just knowing that there's different ways to skin a cat. You just have to have, your different ways. And if you do, then you're a more powerful investor overall.
Would you ever consider virtually wholesaling, like going outside of your market? Maybe not just doing in Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. For me personally, I know that Vegas was competitive, but I also saw your results kind of from the start. Like, hey, if I hustle, I can, kind of build something out here. And that's always been my not priority, but preference, I guess is the word. So, I've kind of built that out. But yeah, I've definitely looked into wholesaling in some other markets. I think if you're in a really, really competitive market and you just, yeah, there's nothing wrong with, going and wholesaling somewhere else. For me, it just, hasn't been come up as a great opportunity because you need, boots on the ground, somebody you could trust in that area. Haven't built those connections yet, but, possibly I've looked at a few markets. I've looked at North Carolina. If you're in North Carolina, reach out to me. Atlanta, Georgia. So if you're in any of those markets and you're a newbie, you want to reach out, feel free. I mean, I have the marketing dollars. I'll, be more than happy to have my cold callers call out there and kind of see what we can get. But for now, it's just been Vegas because, backyard.
All right. So next one, coming to, what is the biggest assignment fee you've ever made on a deal?
So the biggest assignment fee I personally made, it was a $42,000 assignment, which is, crazy amount of money. I probably, for anybody that doesn't know, I was actually working another job prior to starting real estate. So probably made more on one assignment than I did all year working, and I would work hard too. So it's definitely, real estate is dope. It's awesome.
Yeah. And then I want to kind of say something about that because I've been wanting to kind of post something about this, and it's just like the idea of like the new normal. Like we're all dealing with it right now, right? This is a new normal, like doing virtual meetings, wearing a mask when you go on public. So now at first it was kind of weird, but now it's normal, the new normal, right? And I remember when I first started, like a $10,000 paycheck, $20,000 paycheck would, significantly improve and change my life. And it was like, it was great. Now it's like, I get checks way, bigger than that. And I don't say that, to be arrogant. I'm saying that like, now it's a new normal for me. And so, but I'm looking forward to like the day where like $100,000 doesn't change my life. Maybe even $1 million, it doesn't change my life. So you have to be thinking about this stuff to be like, hey, at some point it feels like it's so far, but once you get there, be like, all right, this is my life now. This is like my business now. This is what I do now. And now it's the next like step and the next step and the next step. So what is the new normal that you would like to see for your life is the question I have for you guys, right? Think about that.
That's amazing. Yeah, good thought right there, Alex. Definitely could not agree more. I know sometimes with real estate, you get comfortable making a certain amount, so it becomes not good enough. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. Assignment fee, what I meant to say, sorry, I didn't know if I was muted or not, meaning like profit as to what he did for a wholesale. And then next one, Vlad as well, is how do you determine what that should be per wholesale deal that you do?
Yeah. So in terms of like an assignment fee that I, pick out for a property, when we're looking at assignment fees, I usually, I want to be sure that I could close on it. So in order for me to know what I can close on it with, it has to be, with my own hard money costs. So, what I'm going to be paying in hard money, my own construction costs, so what my contractor would be charging me. So I include all of that. I get my own rehab budget. Like, hey, I would personally buy this deal at $230,000. So now if I lock up anything under 230, then I could theoretically just wholesale it right to myself and we could flip it and I'll be happy. So let's say 230 is the number. Hey, I would buy it at 230. I go back and then we negotiate with the seller. We are able to negotiate at 212. So now that's an $18,000 assignment if I was wholesaling it to myself. But, then I go back and I reach out to some of my other cash buyers that may have a little bit of a different buy criteria. I use hard money. Let's say somebody has way cheaper hard money or, cheaper financing, or they have no financing at all. Some of the bigger guys here in town, they just have a ton of cash. They're just really, really cash heavy. So they might not have any holding costs besides, utilities and stuff like that. So for me, I would be paying, 10 to 12,000 in holding costs, with between points and all of that. They might not. So that's another 12,000 that I could add to the assignment potentially if they're interested in this deal. So all of a sudden I could buy it at 230, but somebody else could buy it at 242. I locked it up at 212. I just created a $30,000 assignment fee, essentially kind of not out of nowhere, but you squeeze the margins on the way down. You get it, just when you're working on market, that's why I like off market so much personally, like wholesaling and being direct to seller. Because with a seller, when they're, they might be selling their house, that 5,000 won't change their life to an extent. A lot of the time they're like, I'm just trying to solve my problem. Like, how are you going to solve it? And, sometimes we feel guilty. We're like, well, 220, like we have to be at 220, but then I'll throw out 215. I'm like, hey, you think we can work at 215? What's going on with that? And they'll be like, yeah, we can do it at 215. So now I just decrease it by 5 on this side. And I found a buyer that's willing to pay a little bit more maybe. So now I just created, a bigger assignment for me. So I don't really have like a set criteria. I know what my buyers will buy in Vegas. I know what I'll buy it at. And then whatever I get under that, it'll just be kind of an addition to the assignment.
Guys, that's incredible stuff. If you don't mind, if you guys are watching along, go ahead and use the chat and give us a big VLAD if you would want to make $5, $10, $30, or $42,000 on a check. If those kind of numbers are life-changing for you, go ahead and give us a big old VLAD or a yes or a thank you, something there in the chat. This is just incredible stuff. Again, to see somebody who's able to kind of turn that concept, like, look, how I can negotiate and get that extra 5,000 here, that extra 10,000 here, understanding the hard money points and the different buyer categories that he's going to have. Again, for a 21-year-old real estate investor, it's a level of maturity that you don't really see from most people. Kind of moving forward, Vlad, speaking of a 21-year-old, not many 21-year-olds out there are business owners, are employing people. And you're actually at the point where you have a couple of people that work underneath you and you're looking to expand. Tell us a little bit more, like when you're making your first hire for your company, what are you looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently it's just me working with VAs. I have virtual assistants that work in Honduras and they're rock stars. They're doing well for me. A couple of them are more on the rookie side. And then one of them has been around with me the longest, which the longest is about 5 months. So, that's still a good amount of time. Now for me, I'm looking kind of for, I'm hiring an acquisitions person, somebody that's hungry and looking for deals. I don't want anybody that's kind of looking to wholesale themselves to an extent. I kind of want somebody who's more looking to grow like a real estate company as, a manager, somebody that I can invest a lot of time in. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm like I was saying, I'm looking for acquisitions guy, somebody that's a stone cold closer. You don't have to be a closer for sure. It could definitely be, I feel like it could be taught, but you do have to be kind of like coachable, have really good like desire to learn and get better. And I think that's huge. And then I'm looking for like an admin transaction coordinator here in Las Vegas. Somebody like Jay would be awesome. Somebody that's kind of like an agent as well. That would be like killer. Potentially listing flips once it comes down to it. I am actually currently licensed if anybody's interested. I'm here licensed in Vegas. I don't like the agent side. I'm not a big fan. I haven't done a single residential deal. I have MLS access. I negotiate deals on MLS and stuff like that, but I've never done, sold somebody's house for them, let's say. So hiring an admin, I don't like the escrow side, somebody to take care of that, and a closer. That's, my next hires.
How nervous were you and how did you overcome that when you were first kind of making the dive? And then if there's anything you can kind of tell yourself day one, if you could go back, what would that be?
I still get nervous sometimes when things, as an entrepreneur, things are going to go super sour sometimes, and it's your job to kind of figure them out and, work from there. So I think if you're nervous, you're doing something well. Just keep on pushing through the nervousness. You'll never not be nervous in the business. I know you get, more accustomed to the regular stuff. There's always going to be unknown stuff that kind of comes in, and it's kind of a curveball. I know I personally haven't gotten, but I know other guys in the real estate space, it just comes with the territory. You get sued for dumb stuff. Like, it just happens. And I'm sure at some point it will happen to me as well. I'll probably be nervous doing that too, and going through that process. You're going to be going through something for the first time, all your life. So just push through it. It's the first time of something, greater, and going from there. And then you had one more question, I think. It said, if you could go back to when you first started and advice, what advice would you give yourself? Just keep going. I would start earlier, first of all. But definitely just get started and keep going, because, and don't quit. For, a lot of, in the beginning, I, started off and I was kind of hesitant, but just go full speed. Don't think twice about it, and you'll definitely succeed. I guess one closing thought, I think, it's super important to have a mentor. Like I said, I reached out to a mentor. I didn't really provide value. He told me off essentially, but the next time around, I, didn't really deep dive in, but my first deal ever actually ended up doing with that same mentor, because I went out, took action, found leads, actually converted a lead, and reached out. So I think it's important to have somebody like Alex. I mean, if you're in Los Angeles, you get started, you have a lead, you don't know what you're doing with it. It's like, how do I get it under contract? It's like, you remember the person that, has pushed you into it, the person that has given you the value. Reach out to Alex. I'm sure he's going to be more than happy to, JV with you on the deal or buy it from you wholesale, whatever it takes. And it's going to help you a lot. You're going to learn a lot, but go out, take action, crush it. And once you don't know something, reach out to Alex and he'll probably, help you out.
Sounds good. Yes.
Was
thank you.
there a steak dinner on the line on that one, on that first deal? No.
Vegan.
Love it. All right, guys, go out there and crush it. Let us know if you have any questions, if you need anything. All right, I'll see you guys.
Take care. See you guys next week. Stay tuned. Next one's going to be really great.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for this.
Stay safe out there, everybody.